Welcome to Demond Does the Six Questions, where the same six questions can tell a unique story. I am your host, Demond, father of two, husband of one, and leader of this here Demodcast. And before we get back into the interview with my buddy Gilbert, we need to do a couple little housekeeping things. Please hit your Apple Podcast button. Make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and some comments in the thingy. It doesn't have to say anything important. It could just say hi. And now, part 2 with Gilbert Corsey. I believe we were on question number 3. What is your go-to order at your favorite hometown restaurant?
Chicken and beef teriyaki at any teriyaki place in the Pacific Northwest. And you have to be from the Pacific Northwest to know about the places that just have teriyaki on the front.
Explain.
It's teriyaki. Like if you're in Seattle, if you're from the Seattle, Portland, California, you know that there are all over the place, like Starbucks and McDonald's, there are teriyaki places.
It's just called teriyaki?
It's just called teriyaki. Yes.
What?
Yes. And it is amazing.
It's a franchise out there?
No, it's not a franchise because they're independently owned. You just put teriyaki on the front of the nani and you know what it is. And like if you are from there, you know what I'm talking about. Or you visited there and you've had it, you know what I'm talking about. But this far east, no. Then people go to like Chinese restaurants or something like that, or Japanese restaurants or whatever Asian fare they're trying to get, and they're like, order teriyaki. Not this far east, you're not gonna get it. It don't taste right.
Gotcha.
You got to be on the West Coast to get good teriyaki, and it is one of the first things I do when I get home.
Question number 4. What are you curious about?
What am I not curious about? I think that what I tell young journalists, I've been doing this for 15 years now. What I tell young storytellers all the time is the most powerful question, the most powerful tool you have in your toolkit is the power of why. Just ask why. And if you dare to ask why and then search for the answer, many times in that path from the question to the answer, you find a story. I can't tell you how many times I know it sounds all philosophical and everything like that, but so many stories have started from just the epicenter of why. I did a story wound up being an investigation called From the Schoolhouse to the Jailhouse, another one of those for award-winning stories. And it really came out of, for 2 weeks straight, I felt like every day on the news I was reading a 25-second story about a kid who got arrested at school. And the one that got me was when the charge was cursing at a teacher. And I was like, we took a kid to jail for this? And I was like, I'm not saying that cursing at a teacher is right. I'm not saying that that's okay by any means. But when you put a young person in the justice system, you start a cycle in their life. That's not my opinion. That's just what the statistics show, right? And I'm like, you arrested a child or a teenager for being dumb and being stupid and being disrespectful? He is all of those things. It is not okay to curse at a teacher, but is it a crime? Right. Should we be putting children behind bars and making them go see a judge for it? And so then it started, how many kids have been arrested at school? And it was thousands in Louisville. I mean, it was 4 or 5 a day, every day in Louisville that we're going from the schoolhouse, from the jailhouse. That's what our investigation uncovered.
Wow.
Right? So it literally came from, why did this kid go to jail for that? Well, how many kids is this happening to? And it opened the door to, oh my God, we have a problem here. We are locking up thousands of young people and setting them on this path of being thrust into the justice system. The power of why. Searching for the answer, you find the story.
Question number 5. Is there anything I should have asked but didn't?
What should you have asked but didn't? That's a good question. I've used that in times. That's a classic interviewer's question. You didn't ask about how I've talked about going from Washington State, packing my life in my car and moving across the country hoping to work for the WWE. You didn't ask how I got into news though.
How did you get into news?
I say it was the big man upstairs. I moved days after graduation, packed my life in my Saturn, drove across the country, hoping to get an internship with the WWE, because I had applied to every job open on their website during my senior year of college. And one day, like the week before spring break, I got a call back. And I got a call, and I thought it was my friend messing with me. So it's like 7 in the morning, which is, I'm on the West Coast. WWE is obviously based on the East Coast. And he's like, I'm looking for Gilbert Corsey. This is so-and-so. I think it was Chris Pegnataro. Don't quote me on that. Eventually I had conversations with lots of people in the HR department. But Chris Pegnataro from World Wrestling Entertainment, actually he just called it World Wrestling. And I was like, what? It's 7 in the morning. And I was like, man, Justin, get off my effing phone. Like, I'm like, and he's like, excuse me? And I was like, I like fall out of bed. I was like, oh my God, is this real? Like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. It's 7 o'clock my time. This is Gilbert. We noticed that you applied for several internships on our website. So I had a brief conversation, and he was like, when are you graduating? I was like, I'm graduating in May. And he was like, well, I can't, offer you a job in this entry level, we don't hire, ultimately, this is what he said, we don't hire paid interns from across the country, but if you get here, there'll be something for you. That was enough for me, Mo. I had gone to the quintessential college job fair like a couple weeks earlier and been offered like 6 jobs, and I accepted them all. I just didn't want to be that guy who graduated and was unemployed, and moving back home was not an option. Like, I was like, I am not moving back to my parents' house. That's not happening. I mean, so like any and all jobs that were offered to me, 6. I went to a college job fair. I got 6 job offers out of that college job fair. I accepted them all and wound up turning them all down, saying thanks but no thanks, just because of that phone call with this HR dude from the WWE and saying, with taking all my graduation money, so $3,000 about to my name, which, to me now, as a 35-year-old adult, this is so scary to me that I would even fathom to do this. But at 22 years old, with literally $3,000 to my name and a $500 credit card for a backup plan, I packed my life in my car and moved across the country to the most expensive city in the United States.
Yeah.
I mean, and now I'm like, Gilbert, you didn't have enough for first and last month's rent in New York. What in the world were you thinking? And so I wound up Craigslisting, getting into a summer sublet in Dobbs Ferry. And so Dobbs Ferry was in Westchester County, just outside the 5 boroughs that they consider New York, but it's closer to Stamford. And so it was like a college house, and some of the roommates were gone for the summer, and so they're just looking to sublet their lease.
Right.
So I got into this sublet, and I waited for the WWE to call, and I waited, and I called them, right, and emailed, and then I was like, Mama, you told me if I moved here that you would call me. And so finally I did get the call, had an interview, and they were just like, well, it looks like you want to be on camera. And I was like, yes, I want to be a broadcaster, right? Like, and they were like, well, look, these internships are in production. So you got to make packages, you may learn to direct a show, this and that. It's going to be behind the scenes, right? And we do hire a lot of our interns, but these jobs are never going to lead you into a commentary position, being in front of the camera or doing anything where you are writing the show and creative. You need to go be on television for 5 years every day and then come back to us. And this is why I say it was the big man upstairs, because that same day, not even 2 hours later, a television station in Abeline, Texas called me.
That day?
Same day, hours later, called me and said, hey, have you graduated yet? Because we have a reporter opening.
Wow.
I was like, what? Like, yeah, we want to put you on TV every day, 5 days a week. Same day. That's why I said it was the big man upstairs. So as fast as I had moved to, so you're like, how did that television station in Abilene even know about you? A year earlier, I was supposed to be doing an internship with a private production company in Dallas. They I know, it was weird. I just stumbled upon this internship. They were like, they were going to house me and pay me a stipend. They said, we just need you to have transportation so you can drive to and from the shoots. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. And then like a week before I was supposed to leave to start the internship, they called me and said, we had an advertiser back out, and so now we have to cut expendable resources. And I was like, well, what's an expendable resource? They said paid interns from out of state.
No news.
Yep. So I'm like en route, literally. Mo, I am en route to Texas on like my way down there, and I've already paid my university for the credits. Like, you gotta pay to go work somewhere, most times for free. Internships aren't paid. So I've already paid my university to do these credits. I pull off to the side of the road and I'm wrecked, you know? I'm like, Seattle's a competitive market. It's a top 15 market, so they hire their interns in like March. I didn't have the other media markets in the state like Spokane. I didn't have anywhere that I could live for free and go intern and work at the stations in Spokane. So I called my dad and he's like, keep driving. There's TV stations in Abilene, Texas, and you got family there. So I literally kept driving. I set up interviews on the road while I was still en route to Texas. There were 2 stations in Abilene. That had 3 affiliates. So there was K-Texas, which was the ABC station, and then KTAB-KR, which had a duopoly for the NBC affiliate and the CBS affiliate. I had interviews set up at both. At 10 o'clock in the morning for K-Texas and like 11:30 for KTAB-KR. I went to K-Texas. They said, you can start today, and I never went to the other interview. And when I interned there, and I had like aunts, uncles, and cousins, I had been to Abilene once in my life when I was 12. I am now 21, showing 21. I had been there for 3 days ever in my life. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But you had family there, so.
Right. My aunt was like, what is happening here? Right? So I went to the interview and I tell students this all the time, go intern somewhere. Well, it used to be. Now media has changed. When I was coming out of college and getting into television, like, digital careers didn't exist.
Right.
So you had to go to a 150 or below, 215 media markets in the country. The bigger the number, the smaller the town, the smaller the media market, right? So New York is number 1, Los Angeles number 2, Chicago number 3, San Francisco's in the top 10, Dallas is in the top 10, Houston's in the top 10, Detroit, DC, the big cities, big markets, right? Small numbers. Well, when you're coming out of college, you got to go to market number 1608. And that's what Abilene, Texas was. But I used to tell people, go intern in those places. Go make your mistakes in those places, because that's where you go learn to figure out how to do the job. And then if you're an intern and they've already trained you to be an intern, and if you're good, they'll hire you. So when I interned at this small market station in Abilene, they happened to be down like a producer, an anchor, and a reporter. And you know, in a station where I work at now in Louisville, where we got 105 employees, life goes on, right?
Right.
But in that newsroom where they got 25 employees, like, they were short-staffed. Yeah. So for those 2.5 months, every day I would pitch a story in the morning meeting, go out with the photographer, shoot it, and the news director was like, I won't put interns on air, but you can turn a package in our main anchor will voice it for you, and so I would go out and do a package every day, and then somebody else would voice it, would front it, and then I would go to the booth and sit with the producer and time out the show. And so I had done that the year before, and when I left, I said thank you. I had no intention to getting into news. I said I'm getting into wrestling. Don't worry about it. Blah, blah, blah. I said my goodbyes. Didn't do what you're supposed to do, where you keep in contact with the people you do your internship with, trying to network with them. Didn't give it another thought, right? Fast forward to a year later, same day that WWE is like, go be on television every day. Because when they tell somebody that's like daunting. Those doors just don't open. Right. And that's why I say it was the big man upstairs, because the God said, okay, let me push that door open for you. And then I got a call saying, hey, we want you to come be a reporter.
That's crazy. Mm-hmm. That is a crazy story.
So then as fast as I packed my car and left from Seattle to Washington, Seattle to New York, I left from New York to Texas.
Wow. That's crazy.
I know.
It just makes me sad. This is the last question. Question number 6. If you could create a new holiday
what would it commemorate?
It'd be great to have a day for journalists.
In
I
what
think
way?
the role of the First Amendment and the freedom of the press and journalism, which is under attack in this country, man, it is so hard. I say all the time, we're no longer the good guys. Like, if we expose truth, it doesn't matter how true it is, somebody else can call it a lie, and then your credibility is damaged. It's insanity.
Even if you've done your...
I'll give you an example. I did a story on a woman who was elected to a city council in a town just outside of Louisville. She moved 40 minutes away from the town, 2 counties away. And you have to live in the city to hold office. Okay?
That makes sense.
She was getting a stipend, $350 a month. And that really wasn't so much while she was staying on the council. She's staying on the council because the council was divided 3-3. And so that when the council, every vote had been split, it gave the power to the mayor to be the deciding vote. And if she would have left the council, the mayor wouldn't have been the deciding vote anymore. So there was a deal cut for her to stay on the council and lie and say that she's living at her brother's house in order for the council to still be split. We revealed this. We proved that she sold her house, pulled up the deed, went to her new house 40 minutes away, have her husband on camera in the front lawn. Here was the big thing. Not only had she changed her driver's license, dude, she changed her voter registration to her new house, 2 counties away, 40 minutes away. So you want to vote in one community and serve in another, right? We have all of this laid out.
Wow.
Right? And she'd been avoiding. I also say this all the time. When you see a journalist who has to go do what we call a confrontation interview or a non-scheduled interview, please know that's the last resort. We don't like doing that, right? That is this person won't return our calls, they won't return our emails. We've told them we're going to come to a public setting and ask our questions. That is a last resort. So I have to go to the city council meeting where I know she's going to be there and wait for her in the parking lot and say, hey, why are you going to serve on this council 8 months? Why are you still on the city council 8 months after you've moved out of this city?
Wow.
Why are you, well, I'm not. Well, here's the deal. And then you got to pull out your facts. Well, here's the sale from your old house. Here's the deed to your new house. And you've changed your voter registration. So you want to vote in one community and serve in another? Right? You laid all your facts. Here's why I say we're not the good guy anymore. Okay, so the day after our story ran, so we also found that the Attorney General had told her that she was not eligible for office anymore either. And she continued to stay. What she did was she switched her mailing address to be City Hall. True. We uncovered it all. Documents for it all. Have it all. Right? One day after our story ran, she resigned. Okay?
Okay.
I got several calls explaining, with people upset with me because I picked on this little old lady. Because she was 120 pounds, maybe soaking wet, and maybe 5'3", and I am 6 foot and 200 more pounds than I'd like to say. And it didn't matter that she was lying to stay in office, part of a corrupt city government, taking taxpayer money she didn't deserve. All of those things didn't matter. It was, why are you picking on that little old lady? Let alone that the truth was that she was completely wrong. That's the kind of attack that journalism's under right now. And this has changed. It used to be when I showed up at a scene, the news is here. People were happy to see you. And that's not the case anymore. Wow. The political landscape has, and because if a story's wrong, it damages all of our credibility. Same thing happens in policing. If a police officer does something bad, it eats away at the credibility. That one officer eats away at the entire credibility of their department. Same thing happens in journalism. If a journalist gets a story wrong, it eats away at the entire credibility of our profession because there is a big, loud voice from the top saying, don't believe what you hear on the news. It's not true. Just because, I say, just because you don't like it doesn't mean it's not true.
Right.
That's small local level, right? This
Right.
is happening nationally as well.
Right.
You have journalists that are uncovering just insane things that would not be uncovered had it not been for a journalist. There is a reason that there's a First Amendment. There is a reason that there is the freedom of the press, right? It exists to be a watchdog for those in power.
Why do you think that people believe the attacks against journalism? Why do you think people believe that?
The role that social media has played in eroding journalism is huge, because now there is a misinformation war out there. People don't know that when they click on what looks like a real headline from ABC XYX Z2134, which has graphics that look just like your local ABC station, but you didn't pay attention to the address in the address bar, they don't know that that's not true. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people in my Facebook friend list, people I consider intelligent, college-educated people, share stories, and I'm like, hey, I just sent them a private message. That's not true. That's fake. That's somebody out there who's trying to put misinformation out there or propaganda out there. And so it used to just be you'd have to deal with bloggers, right?
Yeah.
Bloggers who aren't real journalists. Well, sometimes there are bloggers who do good stories. I'm not like crapping on all bloggers, but I'm saying that you got some bloggers that are just, in their mom's basement and putting that out there on the internet.
Making up stuff.
That used to be one thing. Now magnify that times 1,000,000, and that is what fake news is. And because educated people sometimes cannot tell the difference between those real fake news sites, for lack of a better term, that has nothing to do with journalism, and what they're getting from their local affiliates or their local newspaper or their local radio station in town, there's just this brood of confusion.
Yeah.
And so then you have this loud voice from the top saying, that's not true, what they're telling you is not true. And then you pull up a sensational article and it's like, well, no, that's not true, but no credible journalist said that. Some weirdo in Russia who's in a misinformation war put that in our social media sphere. It's real. It is absolutely real. So now you have to defend yourself against headlines that weren't even real in the first, that were not even created by a real journalist. They were put in the social atmosphere just to confuse. You also didn't ask me about what I've done at OVW.
What have you done in OVW?
That was, so in front of the camera, I've always been the commentator, right?
Right.
The interviewer.
Most of the time,
announcer, and live events,
the time that we were there together, you were the lead
straight
announcer.
broadcaster,
Yeah.
straight broadcaster. It's one of the great things about OVW, because I've learned so much in my time there. Danny Davis, what a phenomenal mentor. And just the other people that you've been able to learn how to produce wrestling from. Like, when I came in, Cornette was writing TV, right?
Yeah.
And then Al came in writing
Yeah.
TV. Both have their equal genius, but they also both do it very different ways,
Right.
And so you're just able to glean ideas from so many different people, right? And be able to put your own thing together. We know about, what happened at NWA and the social media backlash that he has gotten. I do not think that Jim Cornette is racist in the least bit.
No.
That was not my experience with him at all whatsoever. This is a guy who made a spot for me at OVW, gave me my first opportunity on a national platform with Ring of Honor, and has always answered the phone when I called in with a question. So I consider him a friend and a mentor. And in this wrestling business, everybody's in their own silos and in their own cliques, and I'm sure that may make somebody unhappy along the way. But I'm a journalist at my core, and I just speak the truth. I think that he told an old joke that isn't socially acceptable anymore.
Yeah.
But I do not think in the least bit in his heart that he is racist. Okay, so at OVW, started as as analyst. Came in, Dean Hill was the lead guy. Always respect Dean Hill as the lead guy. Then I came into more of Al, particularly in Al's writing. He would, afterwards, he'd be yelling at me backstage about, why didn't you cut Dean off? And I'm like, what? I'm like, he's the lead. What do you mean? Like, what am I? And so, how am I supposed to, like, what am I, I'm number 2. You're getting on number 2 for not controlling number 1, right?
Right.
Like, and so Al flipped that. He was like, I want you to be the play-by-play guy.
Okay.
But, so here's the deal, and this is why I'm always about respect, because I was like, okay, I will take over play-by-play on the show, but Dean will always be the first voice they hear when OVW comes on the air. So I always would say, all right, Dean, this is what we're starting with. Start us off with this. And then I'd go once he started. It was Dean's show. He was the first voice, he was the original voice, and it was his desk until he didn't want to do it anymore, period. Jobs at OVW. I have been creative. I've written over 200 episodes.
Wow.
I, at one point in time, was helping Danny on the business end, the back end of it, you know. Managing partners, like Africa, like businesses that wanted to do, become a partner in some way with OVW, whether it was inventory during our television show, commercial breaks, banner placement, sponsored talent appearances at their companies, you know, just kind of overseeing what that agreement looked like. Right, so you're heavily on the business end of it. Recruited talent to our school, produced events from top to bottom, in partnership with other major companies as well. Like, the opportunity that you have to learn so much.
I hope you found Gilbert's incredible journey through news and wrestling as interesting as I did. You can see and most importantly hear Gilbert Corsey on Ohio Valley Wrestling as part of the Gladiator Sports Network on the YTA Network. You can also find all their streaming content on ovwrestlingnetwork.com. That's all one word. And it also still airs at 9 p.m. on WBNA TV in the Louisville and Southern Indiana area. You can also find him on Facebook and Twitter at G Corsey. And again, I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you leave a 5-star review after you get done, and I'll see you next week. So until next time, see it, hear it, speak it, live.